Hello, fellow Daz Studio enthusiasts. This is Not From This World, and I want to welcome you back to another Daz tutorial. Now, today I want to talk to you a little bit more about groups, and I want to show you how grouping your characters and props together can really help you pose, save time creating your scene, help you move objects within a scene, and generally just set it up so that you can get rendering as fast as you can. Now, as you can see, I have my Milika character, and she is already posed in kind of a sci-fi theme, and I want to build a scene around her with a lot of characters. Today I'm not going to be using any billboards. I'm going to use real characters. And so we're going to build a really large scene, but we're going to do it piece by piece. And so I'm going to start off with Milika here. And the idea that I have for this picture is that Milika is going to be on a rescue mission trying to rescue some other girls that have been captured by those goblins that I used last week when we made our billboards. So I'm going to set up a scene kind of around Milika, and I'm going to then take that scene and I'm going to group it. And I want to show you the advantages of using groups when we're building these large scenes. All right, so I'm going to kind of put Milika behind some rocks here because she is hiding. So I'm just taking these boulders here. And I want to kind of place her around these boulders. Okay, so you kind of get the idea of where I'm going. I think I'm going to put her into kind of a forest here. So you can see I now have Milika in a scene, kind of in a forest behind rocks. Now what I want to do is I want to create a group with the entire scenery. I'm going to leave Milika out of the group, but I'm going to take and I'm going to select my rocks. I'm going to hold down my shift key, and I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 rocks plus the scene itself called My Beautiful Forest. I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to select all of those. Then I'm going to come up here to create, and I'm going to go to new group. I'm going to select the group, and then I'm going to name it scene. Now the advantage of using a group is now all of those objects are together. So when I select the scene, see, I can select it in my parameters tab. I can also drop down and see everything in there. But if I have the scene itself selected, see, I can move it around however I want to. And so I can adjust things for my picture. What's also really cool is I can take these rocks around Milika that I created, and I can create a group within that group. So I'm just going to highlight them, go over to create another new group, and then I can just name this rocks. Now I can move the entire scene, or I can select the rocks and just move the rocks. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to put Milika kind of in all of these rocks. The rocks that came with the scene, see, are back there, and then the rocks that I added are right there as well. So I can adjust this and move just my groups. So I'm going to take this scene and I'm going to move the scene around Milika rather than Milika around the scene. And this makes life a whole lot easier for us, is moving the scene around our character. And you can see, like, if I select Milika, she is at home. She is at the XYZ000 coordinate. And that's kind of where I want to keep most of my characters. It's easier to add things when they're at the 000 coordinate system, things like that. So if I can keep my figure and move my scene around her just seems to work really well. Now I'm just selecting those rocks, and see I'm moving those rocks kind of into position. I think I want to select Milica, maybe just rotate her a little bit like that. Okay, so what I've done is I've created a group for the entire scene, and then I just created a subgroup for the rocks. Now, what I want to do next is I want to add some other characters into the scene, like they're being attacked. And so I'm going to save this as a scene, and I think I'm just going to call it my grouping tutorial, because this is my grouping tutorial video. So I'm going to save that. Okay, so I have my scene set up, and what I want to do is I want to add some more characters to this. However, when I add characters, I'm going to add them using a new scene, and I just so happen to have created them, and so I'll give you an example here. Let's open up a new scene and we'll add it into the existing scene. Okay, so I have created this scene with goblins, and they're carrying this poor girl that they've taken captive. And so they are all characters. And so what I want to do is I want to take this scene and add it into my Milica scene. Before I do that, I want to put them all into a group, because it makes everything so much easier to move. And I've got 4 goblins and the girl character. So I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to go to create and then go to create a new group. I'm going to name this, let's just name it girl number 1. All right, now what's kind of cool is, see, if I zoom out, I have this group selected. I'm going to be able to rotate them all together. All right, so I've got these characters all grouped as one. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go to my Milica scene, open it back up. Now I have my Milica scene back open. I'm going to move my goblin group into the scene by going to File, Merge, and then when I select Merge, I just have to find the file, and it's going to be under Group Tutorial, and then I believe it was this Group Tutorial 2. I'm just going to select it, and it's going to import that scene into my Milica scene. Okay, so we now moved that goblin scene into our tutorial scene here. And what's cool is I named it Girl 1, so I can select that Girl 1 under the Scene tab, and now I can move that entire group, rotate it, move it together. So I'm going to move this out as if they are walking with their captive, and Milica is observing. Now I can select individuals within the group and move them separately, just like I always do. Or I can select the whole group and move the entire group. So that's what's really cool about this. So I've got to adjust this goblin group, because if you notice, like, this guy's legs are buried. So I'm going to just kind of lower him down because they're carrying this girl. So it's going to be hard to adjust. But then I can see I can raise this guy up by himself so that his feet are above the ground. All right, and I can save this. Now I also have another group with a girl and goblins created, so I'm going to open that one up, and we're going to merge the two scenes together. All right, so here's my other goblin scene, and you can see I've already got it selected into a group. Just a couple things about this before we import her into our big scene. If you create a group and you don't like it, you can always select the items within the group, just right click and go to unparent, and it takes them right out of the group. Then you can select that group and delete it. So we can do that. We also want to avoid putting cameras in the group. So let me show you. If I add this camera to the group, my default camera, and I create this group, we're going to call this girl 2. If I have my camera within the group, we get weird things happening. So trying to move the camera becomes very strange. And so I don't recommend you put spotlights or cameras into the group. Keep them separate. So see, I have that camera in the group. I don't want that camera in the group, so I'm just going to right click and go to unparent, and then it's out. If you leave your camera in the group, you will have a lot of trouble trying to move that camera where you want it. Okay, so now I've got my second girl ready to go. She is in a group, so I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna open up my original scene, and I'm gonna import girl number 2 into the main scene. The biggest advantage to building your scene this way is that when you have a big scene, it's harder to move your characters because it's eating so much memory on your computer. But if you make separate scenes that you then merge together, it's really easy to move your characters around. You can repose them, you can get them in the position that you like, save it, and then move it into your final scene, do a few tweaks, and it's ready to go. I do this all the time where I will set up a scene and I'll have a group like this that I build in a separate scene, and then I move it over into my main scene to render. It also makes things really easy to delete. So I can delete the entire group out of my main scene and then come back to this more basic scene, edit it, repose, and then just merge the edited scene back into my main scene. So there's a lot of advantages to using groups when you are creating your scene. All right, so now that this scene's open, I just got to go to File, Merge, and I have to select Group Tutorial 3 because that was my girl number 2, and we're going to merge the two scenes together. Merging always takes a few minutes, so you just have to be patient. But our girl number 2 is going to pop in right over Milika because she's at the 000 coordinate. So I think that's where I set up my girl number 2. So you'll see her pop up right where Milika is, and then we'll just move that whole group. All right, so you see she's popped in there. So I'm just going to select girl number 2. First of all, I think we're going to rotate her to make it look like she's walking in the same direction as the girl number 1. Then we're going to move her. I think, let's open this up a little bit so that I can move her. Now, if you notice, this is not moving very fast, and that is because I've got all these characters. You know, last week, it's kind of ironic because last week I was talking about billboards and how nice billboards are because they don't eat up a lot of memory. If you look at this scene, I have 11 characters in this scene, and so it's going to be eating up a lot of memory. Now, billboards are great, and I hope you go back and watch last week's tutorial on billboards, but in my opinion, they just do not replace a real character. They don't show shadows and things like that. So now you can see that I've got all these characters in. I'm going to kind of adjust Milika's head. I have her looking this way. And actually maybe just lower her a bit. She's a little high to be hiding. So perhaps just lowering her a little bit. I'm going to use another camera to just make sure she looks like she's in a good spot. She's about to ambush these awful goblins that have taken her friends captive. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my camera number 1. Let's see, there's this girl on the ground here. So She's hard to move because there's so many characters. It's kind of weird to watch. It's like her body moves faster than her clothes. I think that's why we get that weird look, the striped look. Okay, so you can see that I have used groups, and the groups make setting up our scene so much easier. So to kind of summarize here, I have 3 groups. I have a scene group, and then I have my 2 girl groups with their goblin captors. You know, another thing that's pretty cool is if you have a big scene like this, you can hide various groups. So see, I can take like the girl number 1 group, and I can hide the entire group. And often this makes it easier to move things around. If you hide things, then you can move your other props that are visible a little bit easier. So you can see I have a little more freedom. It's not eating up so much space. You have to realize that really what eats up space in Daz Studio is your textures. So the textures that the program is trying to read is eating up a lot of memory. And so, see, if I wanted to, for example, move Milica around, I might even hide the entire scene. So if I click on that group, I can just hide whatever it is that I don't want to have shown at that moment. So if I look at this, you'll notice that my cameras are outside of all of my groups, and so are my spotlights. And now I just have to run a test. Let's see what this looks like under iRay. Okay, that wasn't bad. I think I want to adjust some of my spotlights. Okay, so I made some adjustments, and I think I have this ready for a render. I changed a little bit of the spotlights. I moved Milica into a different position a little bit. So I think we're ready to render. Let's render this up and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so that render took a little while, but it's finished now. I'm going to save it, and I want to go back to my main scene, and I'm going to render this camera here that just shows Milica up close. But before I do that, I'm going to show you another little trick with the group, and that is to go back to my original camera. And there are a lot of characters in this scene, so what I'm going to do is I am going to hide these 2 girl groups, and that way when I render this picture of just Milica up close, it'll speed up my render. So obviously we can't see anything but Milica in this picture, so by hiding the groups I can speed up my render. This is just another reason why the group is handy, because I can just hide the entire thing instead of having to go and hide each individual character. So now this picture is ready to go. Let's save it, and then we're going to render and see how this looks. Okay everyone, so that render went much faster, which is very nice, but it makes sense because we hid those groups. Milica is about to save the day. She's looking pretty cute. She's ready to save those other girls. So I really hope that this simple tutorial helped you out. Let me know what you think by liking, commenting, and subscribe. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers here by the end of the year. That's my goal. So click that subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Take care.